greetings. It's Black History Month. Black History Month. I am so looking forward. Let me get some light in here. I am so looking forward to today's lesson. Not that much light. Hold on. There we go. Y'all give me 1 second here. There we go. Black History Month. Spiritual death and resurrection. That is what's on today. Spiritual death and resurrection. I think it's going to be, I know it's going to be an awesome lesson. It's not going to be a long lesson, but you want to be there. You want to be tuned in. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be watching all of the classes and all of the various campuses will be tuned in to Riverdale today. I like when we do that. I like when we take the time and everybody lets their screens down and televisions down and kind of tune in to Senior Pastor Henry Buie to kind of go over Black History Month and according to the prophets. And everything, all of the lessons have been coming from scriptures, which is what I like. All of them have been coming from scriptures. And they also have been substantiated by encyclopedias, world history books, which is one of the things that I like when we do that, because it kind of shows evidence from a world history standpoint, or let's say from an academic standpoint of where we're coming from an academic standpoint. You know, a lot of times things can be proven in the scriptures, but sometimes we have to go from the academics, utilizing encyclopedias, almanacs, history books, and the such, to show that the evidence is there. It's not a matter of just proving because we're descendants of slaves coming up through the transatlantic slave trade to show that that is the history of the people of the Bible. It's not so much of that. It's just, it's in the Bible, so we teach it. But it's also to show and dispel the alarm that somebody did something to you and you're angry at the belt, you know, and instead of the consequences, the impact of the consequences, you know, and people coming into the knowledge of the truth that we're the people of the Bible, but they're mad at the people that enslaved us. And from slavery, we learned that the Africans did just as much as the Caucasians did, if not even worse. But, you know, we really can't be mad at anybody, because when you read the scriptures, it was because our ancestors did not keep the law, did not observe to do. These are the consequences of the curses, starting in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, verse 15, all the way down to verses 60. It tells you what was going to happen. I remember, you know, when a kid growing up, and my parents every summer would send me to my grandmother's house. And I used to enjoy going to grandmama's house. You know, his grandmama had the old steel stove. We had an outhouse. That was, you know, that was kind of different, you know, when you grew up having a bathroom with a toilet that flushes. But grandmama, you know, they lived way down in a place called Yosemite, Kentucky. Yosemite. But we would go down there. They lived on a farm. We would go down there. And sometimes when we would get in trouble, Grandmama would say, go get me a switch. Go get me a switch. Right? And of course, you had to pick your own switch. And because we would do things, we didn't listen as little boys. You know how it is. You don't always listen. And you got to get the switch. But never was I upset that I wanted to go cut down all the trees because I had to get a switch from the tree. Why am I mad at the tree? Why am I mad at the switch? Right? I wasn't even mad at my grandmama. So when we look at what happened, even in the lesson from last week, the Lord said, I will cause your children to be sold to another. I will cause another to sleep with your wife, and there would only be anger in your eyes. See, in slavery, that only happened to us. Y'all know the countless stories. Hollywood tried to recant some of it as best as they could. You know, there's a couple of films out there, The Butler, 12 Years of Slavery, Roots, the list goes on, and Hollywood tried to recount some of the atrocities that happened during slavery. Children being sold, taken from the arms of their parents. If the slave handler wanted to decide to grab your wife by her arms and take her in the shed and have his way with her, you know, that happened to us. And these things, it was stated that that was going to happen to our ancestors, you know, from the actions of our ancestors, and it did happen. So it's one of those things that we have to look at and say, okay, I kind of understand what happened here. So that is the real slavery. That is, you know, when we say Black History Month, you want to go to the scriptures. You don't want to, you know, some people think that our history started in 1619. Actually, slavery was back in the 1500s coming to America when the first ships came over, you know. So we were always have been a commodity. You know, you was not considered a person. You was, you know, back in what they call chattel slavery. You know, that's the way it was. You were just a product and a means to provide a service. But that was stated, according to the scriptures, that would happen if our ancestors did not keep the law, the covenant agreement. Go back and read that in Leviticus, the 26th chapter. I see Leviticus, the 26th. Go read that in Deuteronomy, the 28. I told people, go read the book of Judges, how Israel went in and out of slavery. They spent their lifetime in Bible history going in and out of slavery. And it was not at the fault of the oppressors. The Lord sent the oppressors to put Israel in slavery. It was because Israel refused to keep the covenant agreement. They entered into a covenant agreement with the Lord, and they refused to do it. And then they would cry out unto the Lord, and the Lord would always send somebody to deliver them. Judges 3rd chapter, 4th chapter, 5th chapter. Go read it sometimes and read it all the way through. You'll see what happened, because the children of Israel entered into that blood covenant agreement with the creator of this world. And they didn't keep their part. And that's why we're in where we are. That's where we are dealing with what we're doing and how we're dealing with it now, right? It's because we failed to do what we were supposed to do. So today's lesson that Pastor Buie is going to be teaching And again, the lesson will start at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be on spiritual and physical death. Spiritual and physical death. Let me get the name of the lesson today. You want to be there. You want to get this lesson today because it's going to be awesome today. And you want to be there, to get a part of this lesson today. When you're talking about spiritual death and resurrection, this body, this old man has to die. I got more acclimated with the scriptures and with the Bible when I realized that the Bible was my history book. Once I realized that, brothers and sisters, it was a game changer for me. And the reason why it was a game changer for me was because, hey, this book is about your ancestors. You are a descendant of the ancestors in the scriptures. And so I just embraced it, the whole book, reading it, digesting it. It's different when you read it. It's better than going to Ancestor.com and charting out who your relatives were. You can only go so far as to what is in the realms of this country. But then after that, once you go to a certain year, whether it's the 1600s, it stops. But where did those people come from? Well, they came through the transatlantic slave trade. Those are the people in the Bible. And so now I want to go back and read the scriptures. I want to get more about my ancestors. What happened? What happened? What caused a group of people to be put on ships and children ripped from their arms? What caused that? And could you imagine? Some of us couldn't even imagine that today. I remember it was last year. Last year I was teaching, and I grabbed a couple of the kids, because we Black History Month, we like to leave the kids in the room so they can learn as well. But I grabbed a couple of the kids when I was teaching the lesson, and what I wanted the kids to come up from their parents. And I just kind of made the statement that I'm taking the kids. They're no longer yours. There's nothing you can do. We're now taking them. And I got caught up in the moment going over that, saying that, hey, that's what they did. So one of the kids looked at me and they almost had tears in their eyes. And I says, no, not for real, not for real. But could you imagine kids then at that age? It didn't matter if they cried. It didn't matter what they felt, how they felt. They just got ripped from their parents. And they got put on a wagon or a train or whatever it was, whatever mode of transportation. And all they could do was that's it. They knew they wasn't coming back. I don't know if you could even fathom that or not. But it was. It's the way it was. But the Bible says, and so what happens is when people come into looking at what Hollywood presents and what Hollywood kind of tries to recapture it from a movie standpoint, it looks sad. It looks horrible, right? It looks really horrible. But then when you look at the scriptures and it says that's going to happen, and here's why it's going to happen, you say, what do I need to do? So the thing is, you got to get back to the scriptures. You got to get back to the book. You got to read the book. And that's why in 1 Kings 8 chapter, Solomon says, when it comes to the point in time when Israel will be scattered because they make you angry, I'm paraphrasing what he said. He's standing there dedicating the temple. His arms are stretched out and he's praying. And he says that when your people, because they sin and make you angry, and you scatter them among the nations, and when they get scattered, and if they bethink themselves in the land where they have been scattered and repent, that you will forgive them. Wow. So the children really didn't do anything. It's just when the children got taken in slavery, that was the consequences of the parents' actions. And the Lord just took the children. And when that happened, it makes people say, wow, I'm upset with that person that did it. But when you read the scriptures, the Lord said, I'm going to do this. So the person who did it, they're just being used by the Lord to execute what he said would happen. It's sort of like when you're growing up and your parents tell you, don't touch the stove. It's hot. I call it the hot stove syndrome. Don't touch the stove. It's hot. And you run around and you got a little kid and you're trying to train them and you say, hot, hot. But, you know, if the stove burns you, you don't get upset and throw the stove out, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You can't get upset and say, I'm mad at the Caucasian people, the Europeans, and it's your ancestors put me in slavery. No. Our forefathers put us in slavery. That's why it was such a good lesson last week. But again, today is a different. Somebody says, hi, Daddy. I don't know if that's my daughter or I don't know who that is. But hello. But you all tune in today. That is one of my daughters or somebody. I hope that you all tune in today. We're going to have a good time. So tune in today, okay? Make sure you tune in so we all can have a great time. And Andrew Williams, Andrew Vela Sensor, I see you in there. Andrea Reed, happy Sabbath. Anthony, happy Sabbath to all of you all. And we look forward to seeing you today, this morning. I am getting ready to teach a Bible study lesson today. We kind of start that off at about 11:30, go to about 12:30. Then we're going to have our praise and worship team come up at 12:30 to about 1, and then the lesson will be getting started. So we look to see you all then. We'll be tuning in live to Riverdale. Come on in, sit down. We have food. After service today, we provide lunch for everybody. Come on through. Let's have a good time. We'll talk to you all